Hey everybody, today we're going to do some questions and answers. I got a lot of questions this week and there's so many. I'm typing the responses, but I figured I started seeing some duplicates. So I thought, let's do a quick video and answer some great questions. All right, the first question comes from Bill Sis. I think I'm saying that right, like sis, like Swiss Miss. Bill Sis said, Phil, in your professional opinion, why would Fender leave out an effects loop? Question mark. We're talking about the Bass Breaker series, and it can't be for cost, could it? Question mark. So to answer your question, I have two friends. One name's Mark Malin, and he makes Malin amplifiers. They're kind of a boutique-y, hand-wired, handmade, one at a time. He probably makes about a half a dozen amps a year. And I have another friend named Tony Crank who owns Crank Amps. You guys might know them from Crank Amps. They make heavy metal amps. And both these guys I trust, and both these guys I know personally. Interesting enough, without your question, I've asked them an exact same question in the past. Hey, why doesn't a company like Paul Reed Smith on the Archon, or like Fender and the Bassman 59, why don't they just add reverb? Now both gave me the same answer. They said that adding a reverb tank usually means you have to add a reverb tube, and therefore you're going to change the circuit and you change the sound of the amp. Now they didn't explain if that's for the better or for the worse or whatever. They just said, hey, that you will change it, so it won't be the same. Now, when it comes to the effects loop, they gave me the same exact answer. Adding an effects loop, depending on how you do it, will somehow change the circuit or change the amp. Now, they're not saying if it's negative and don't do it or to do it. They're just saying there is some kind of change. Now, we don't know if Fender tried those things or if they didn't try those things. We just know that two guys in the industry who I trust said that there is some changes that maybe they don't want. Now, could Fender be doing it for cost? Absolutely, how would I know? But I think it's cool that we at least know from two guys that it is possible. They just don't want to change the circuit or the sound of the amplifier. Hope that helps, guys. Next question. Hey guys, the next question comes from Nick Hughes. Nick put, the Echoplex is coming back from Dunlop, which is weird since Gibson owns the Echoplex. Okay, this one I actually know the answer to, Nick, and here's the answer. Gibson doesn't own the Echoplex. What happened was when the Echoplex tape delay system apparently went out of business or shut down, Dunlop is the entity that bought it. They do own it to this day. They've owned it since. There's nobody in place since then. So they are the company that bought it. Now when they bought it, they may have bought the trademark, tones and secrets, but really they bought the name. And when Gibson reissued it as a rack mount unit, Dunlop had no intention to use it or do anything with it, so they just let Gibson go with it. They don't care. And then they decided, because of the EP booster, right, which implies the Echoplex booster pedal by Love Pedals, that did so well. I'm sorry, that's Exotic Effects, right? EP booster by Exotic Effects. I'm sorry, guys. Exotic Effects. Long story short, because so many companies basically brought back an Echoplex preamp kind of pedal, Dunlop thought, well, we actually own the name Echoplex. Why don't we reissue a pedal and actually put the name on it since we own it? So Dunlop does own the name, and they have since then. All right, the next question comes from Blaine. Blaine Ludman said, I used to play the Peanuts theme song also, good for you, and me, I guess, because we both play it. I was a guitarist, but one of my drummers learned it from a teacher. What's the scale length on the Music Man 7-string Petrucci that I'm playing? That's the first question. And the second one was, why does everybody get the RG? Okay. So the answer to the first question was, I don't know what the scale length on the Music Man 7 is. I probably should have looked that up before I decided to answer the question. I'm pretty sure it's 25.5. So you can Google, Music Man specs, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, 25.5. However, the reason why every old dude like me plays an RG7, 7-string Ibanez, is because they were the first ones. They're the grandfather of 7-string guitars, solid bodies. Obviously, there was a hollow body 7-string that I don't know anything about. I only know because I Wikipedia it now. Right? But here's the deal. When I was a kid, there wasn't a 7-string. Right? So when people now, they grow up, there's 7 strings. When I was a kid, there wasn't a 7-string. And then all of a sudden, Steve, I was like, hey, there's a 7-string. And all of us were like, there's more than 6 strings? Oh, okay. And then he played it, and you're like, oh, and you can play it? So that was where they came from. So to me, Ibanez is the inventor of it. It's where it is, and it's my first taste of one. I played one for a while. Then everybody had one. Now, in my to my credit, I've owned them. I don't say all, but I've owned about 20 of them. Okay, so I've owned a Fender 7-string. Actually, here's your fun fact of the day, Blaine. Fender actually put out the very first 7-string solid body guitar in 1984 with a guy named Maestro. They made 2 or 3 prototypes. They showed it at the NAMM, and it just didn't have any success or any excitement, and then it died. And then a couple years later, like 86, 87, Ibanez released it with Steve Vai to, obviously fanfare. But Fender did have, and you can Google it and you see I'm right. Fender did had the first one. Here's how I know. I had a 7-string Fender, and when I called Fender to have them custom build me one, they said, we've never done that. And I said, oh, you did the first one. And then they looked at records and called me back and said, you're absolutely right. We actually did one. I said, yeah, you did the first one. You should look in your own history. So so they did the first one. And then for me, it was Ibanez. And of course, I've owned a ton after that. The Music Man is just one of them. But I've had like a Parker 7-string. I have the Nuno Washburn 7-string. I've had the Jackson 7-string, just a ton of 7-strings. And for me, it's just because this was the first one, I go back to it, kind of romanticize it, if you will. So that's why. Old dudes like me just like this one. Yes, extending the scale, it probably improves it, but I'm kind of stuck in my ways at this point when it comes to 7-string. So there you go. Hope that helps. Okay, so the next one is Technical Ecstasy. I'm pretty sure I'm saying it right, but it could be no, I'm pretty sure it's Technical Ecstasy. You guys, we all use these weird phonetically named names, so I know it gets a little tricky. He said, hey, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the Egnator Tweaker series. Not hugely popular, but something interesting and features in the range. Okay, I've had an Egnator Tweaker, and the Bruce Egnator series, when it came out, I was one of the first stores to get it, just like Guitar Center and stuff, and the Tweaker was, to me, the star of the show. It was the amp that Fender should have been making from day one. It was this great head that had the Fender tone, a little bit of blues, a little bit of rock. It was everything in particular. It's still, to this day, one of my little favorite amps. Screwed up with not putting reverb in it. That's where they messed up, because it should have been a one-stop shop amplifier. In other words, I got it, I get every little tone with those little switches, and I get reverb too, and I'm done. They put an effects loop in it, but no. And the other problem is that Egnator didn't learn an important lesson. Now, he's going to be at the NAMM show, and he makes great stuff, but here's what he did. He loaded up with Guitar Center, and the problem with that is they don't care. They just want to sell his stuff and not service it. And he wasn't set up to service the customer base. So if you read about Egnators, you'll find lots of stories about people being unhappy with having the amp serviced. It's because he put out a warranty, but he didn't build in the service infrastructure. It's a clear and cut case of he should have stayed mom and pop for a little while, built his company base up as being an import line of amplifiers, and then from the success, let Guitar Center take it. But Guitar Center saw it as an opportunity to sell a lot of them, and they did that. They sold a lot of them. But Guitar Center, because they're a chain, it has nothing to do with Guitar Center, just any chain. They become fickle and annoyed very quickly if they have to deal with anything other than sales. So they cut him loose pretty quickly. Now, that amp's a great amp. I totally suggest you look at it. It's one of the few amps that's never had problems with the defects. I'm sure you guys might have some out there that are defective, but I'm telling you from my experience, very few of them ever came back, or have I seen defective ones. Great amp. My only complaint was reverb. Look-wise, it was awesome. Like I said, I even showed it to Shane Nichols, the head of amp design for Fender, and said, if you had this, you'd have a winner. He didn't take me seriously, I don't think, but that's what I think. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, the next question comes from Zapman5. Zapman asked an amazing question. Hey Phil, let's say you have a budget of $250. Okay, interested. You need an amp, and you only get one. Just for bedroom play, what are the best options out there, in your opinion, and why? Well, Zapman5, let me tell you, that's my favorite question in the world. That's a game I play actually all the time with my buddies. If you only had $100, what would you buy? If you only had this, what would you do? If you lost your collection tomorrow and you didn't have it insured and all that stuff, what would you do? And it's a great question, so let me answer it for you. So after I read this morning, I actually was at the store today and I was trying all kinds of amps. The PV Viper series and the Roland Cube and all that stuff. So here's what, I'll tell you what it is. For $250, if I had to buy an amp right now, I would probably try to get a used Super Champ X2 combo or head and cabinet. Most likely at that price point, you'd be looking at combo and it'd be pretty tough. They get closer to 3, but I'm sure a little thriftiness and some, so, you know, right, me working it, I could probably get one for about $250. So the Super Champ X2. Now the reason why I picked the Super Champ, you asked why. Let me tell you why. Because the Super Champ X2, I've actually owned 2 of them, and it's a phenomenal amp, and the only reason I ever get rid of them is because I play them for hours and I think, this is great, why don't I just play this? And then I compare them to some kind of boutique-y hand-wired amp or something like that, and I go, well, technically I guess these amps are slightly better. But realistically, I don't think I really believe that. I think the X2 sounds pretty good. So I like that amp. Now, if it wasn't that amp for price, again, price purposes, I would probably go with the Valve King series of amps. Get my hands on a used one again, like some kind of combo. The other thing I would do is try to find, and if that didn't work, the Roland Cube 40, if I had to go solid state, would definitely do it at under 250 bucks. So I would go that route. And if none of that worked, believe it or not, I would probably just find any kind of inexpensive tube amp I could, and then throw some kind of $50 used overdrive pedal in front of it and call it a day. And there's a lot of modeling amps, and don't get me wrong, that's great. My problem with most amps is clean. I always have trouble with clean. So I really want the clean to sound a certain way. And I'm not suggesting for you guys, the question was, what would I do? Well, Zapman 5, that's exactly what I would do, like I said. That's what I would probably pick. So I hope that helps. Okay, the last one. Short Stack 2 asked, basically, says, Phil, is there any more leaks about the NAMM Show, and what are you going to be doing at the NAMM Show? Okay, that's a good question. I like that too. Yes, there's going to be more leaks. If you haven't heard, I created a new Facebook page called Know Your Gear, and I'll put the link to this video right now. You can go there, and what's interesting about that Facebook page is, one, I'm the only one that puts information on it. I'm the only one that responds on it. It's basically 100% interactive through me. Now, that's not that important but except for one thing, my Facebook page for the store, obviously multiple hands have their hands in it, so sometimes there's different postings, and when a question comes through, you know, I answer them, but it gets a little tricky to answer all the questions. I wanted this to be something that I could enjoy doing, just talking about gear with a bunch of cool guys talking about gear, so I made that Facebook page, Know Your Gear. I'm also, that's where I'm putting all the leaks about NAMM Show, so I've actually leaked a bunch of stuff already, or at least put stuff. I hate the word leaked, it sounds so inappropriate and so shady. But so I'm just putting information that I've heard so far, should I say. Obviously, there's a John Petrucci wah pedal by Dunlop that's pretty cool. There's an MXR reverb pedal, which has been long awaited, and it's going to be very cool. There's a, Echoplex delay pedal, which is going to be awesome. A new mini expression pedal, which I thought was cool from those guys as well. You know, I put there's some new Dean guitars that are cool. There's some new information from PRS. There's just a lot of cool stuff. So that's where I'm putting that stuff. So that's, yes, that's where I'm gonna put the information. On the day of the NAMM Show, Thursday, when I go and I put all the photos and all the stuff, videos will be here, but photos and all this stuff in real time will be on the Know Your Gear page. So if you go to Facebook and go to Know Your Gear, you don't have to like it, you just have to know how to get to it. So you click on it and you can see all the stuff that I'm posting throughout the day. So that's the answer to the first question. Second question is, what am I going to be doing? Well, Mike Standard and his friend, we're going to be hooking up. My buddy Tim's coming with me. We're going to go to the NAMM Show Thursday morning. I'm going to run through the show like I normally do. I'm going to meet a couple of friends that I know in the industry and say hi. We'll look at some cool gear, do some interesting things, and, you know, just the stuff I normally do. But again, this year, still going to post pictures like I always do. This year, adding videos, but not just videos of gear. I really don't care about that. I'm only going to put videos out that I think are interesting in some way. So if something interesting happens, I will post that video, I promise. If I get excited about something, I'll post that video, I promise. Also, on the Know Your Gear page, I actually also post all my personal stuff about what guitar I'm buying. I just bought a Gretsch the other day. It's coming, and that will be on there and stuff like that. So, hope that answers that question as well. All right, guys, I had to do this video because there were so many questions. I'm answering the questions when you guys, I try to answer every question, you guys know that comes through. There's a lot of questions, and sometimes you'll notice they're in real time, and sometimes they're not. I will give you a little tip. The longer your question is, the less likely I am to answer it fast, because I can't read it fast and text it back fast. So that doesn't mean I don't answer it. I just kind of set them aside so that when I have a spot that day to do it. I do love the longer ones too, so you know. So I'm not saying don't do those. I'm just telling you how I do it. And again, I'm really enjoying this YouTube channel and this interaction I have with everybody. I want to definitely thank you again for your time. And of course, know your gear.